Okay, next up we have Maria Burton-Sunder, Arizona Life Extension Treatments.
Maria Burton-Sunder here. I'm with the Arizona Department of Transportation, and Kevin Robertson, our surface treatment engineer, couldn't make it today, so I will be presenting his presentation on ADOT's Pavement Life Extension Program. How did this all begin, the life extensions? So every year we do our annual pavement condition assessment, and it was several years ago that when we're looking at some particular road segments, it was identified that there were some segments that were deteriorated beyond the simple surface treatment. The pavement on these particular sections were still structurally sound, but they were not deteriorated enough to be warranted for the rehabilitation treatment. And so ADOT realized that we don't have a treatment for that in-between zone. We have treatments for the lighter surface treatments, and we have the rehabilitation, but there is a gap that we had there. And so conferences like the one we are attending today, several conferences, it was noticed that there were presentations on those thicker, sturdier surface treatments, and they're being used on the western states, including ultra-thin bonded overlays, bonded wear courses, and Cape Seals. And there was a showcase by FHWA in north of Boston, Massachusetts in 2015, where they were showing an ultra-thin bonded overlay on a freeway that had quite a bit of traffic. It had 100,000 vehicles per day. And then there's that FHWA Everyday Counts program. They were encouraging the DOTs to go ahead and try out some new preservation treatments. And so ADOT, with that program, we tried some of those life extension treatments for the pilot projects. And so here's an example. In 2019, we did a Cape Seal in Heber, Arizona. And in that lower right image, that is the chip seal, the gray material is the chip seal, and then the microsurface is the black material on top, and that is the Cape Seal. And then the other life extension project that we tried, pilot project, was in year 2020. We did a 1-inch bonded wear course in Oracle, Arizona. And when we're looking at these two pilot projects of life extensions, the pavements were sound, but they did need some areas of 2-inch mill and replace, spot repairs, to prepare the surface before putting those surface treatments on top. And note that these treatments are not considered rehabilitation. And so the purpose of life extensions is we're trying to restore those structurally sound pavement. It's already structurally sound, but we're trying to bring it, restore it in good condition and prevent it from deteriorating to poor. And so we're maximizing that surface life of the existing pavement and at the same time restoring the ride. And so previously, we had only treatments for the good condition. We had the surface treatments, the fog seals, and then on the opposite end of the scale, we had the rehabilitation and even farther, the reconstruction for poor condition. We didn't have anything in the middle. Now we do. We have life extensions. So we have a treatment for every condition of the pavement now in Arizona Department of Transportation. Just looking at your typical deterioration curves, you will see that the red line, when you are waiting way too long to rehabilitate, you're waiting for that pavement to deteriorate to the point where you only have rehabilitation as an option, it's going to get more expensive versus just doing that preventative preservation treatments beforehand. So looking at that in terms of some typical costs, here is a table of some typical costs. We have 3 different types of treatments, so the top 3 rows that are considered for our life extension program: 1-inch bonded wearing course, a 1/2-inch of friction course, and then the Cape Seal, which is the 2 components of the chip seal with the microsurface on top. Note that these 3 treatments, the costs are already including the the micro milling. And so that is, so when we do the life extension, we're doing it in 3 steps. Step 1 is micro mill it first to remove the existing surface treatment, and we are going to provide a smooth surface. This method, micro milling, is preferred over the standard milling because the standard milling is providing a rough surface. So this is step 1, micro milling to remove it and provide a smooth surface. Step 2 is those 2-inch spot mill and fills where needed. And then step 3 is the actual surface treatment. And the cost of the 2-inch surface preparations are there as well. You compare that with the rehabilitation cost, and it could be either the same cost or lower than rehabilitation, but it's certainly not going to be higher than the rehabilitation. When we are developing these life extension projects, we are looking at some thresholds. So one of these thresholds is, does it even qualify as a life extension project? So we're looking at that HPMS composite pavement condition rating, that good, fair, poor rating. If more than 20% of the project lane miles is in poor condition, it's going to be not considered for life extension. You might as well start considering it for rehabilitation. We're looking at the cracking on that project, the HPMS cracking, the poor cracking. And there is another threshold. It is if when you have too much cracking, you have to prepare the surface, doing that 2-inch mill and fill that I said earlier. So if you're going to do more than 50% of the project with these surface preparations, then that is also going to be disqualified. Now, the 50% is going to be different if you are thinking in terms of future. So if you're planning this project for the future, then we are accounting for that here in the percentages below. If it is 45%, it has to be under 45% of pour cracking if you are 1 year before advertisement. And it has to be a maximum of 40% cracking for 2 years before advertisement. So why are we doing a 2-inch surface preparation in these life extensions? Well, it is a non-structural layer that is treating the age-related top-down surface cracking. And we're trying to reduce the water from infiltrating in there and causing that freeze-thaw damage and those base failures. And we're maximizing the life of the surface treatment. And we're doing this to a structurally sound pavement. Why is it 2 inches deep? Because the AC layer is typically 2 inches deep in Arizona. So we are using the micromilling to remove the surface, the distressed areas, and then we are using the 2-inch surface preparation to prevent that progressive damage to those lower layers. And we are not using the surface preparation as a structural repair. There are situations where it does need to go deeper than 2 inches for that surface preparation, and so we will go ahead and use the FWD, the falling weight deflectometer data, and the pavement design will look at this and determine if it does need to go deeper than 2 inches. Some other thresholds are there is a crash analysis review required if you are going to be 10 to 20% of the project lane miles that are having that poor condition rating. If you have 10 to 20% poor, then a crash analysis report is required. Under 20%, which is majority of what our life extension projects have had so far, that does not need to have a crash analysis review. And then over 20%, that is the same threshold I said earlier, that is just not even going to be considered life extension anymore. And so when we are developing these life extensions, we are looking at all those condition ratings for the sections within this project, and the ones that are rated as poor, we're going deeper into it and looking at it with a falling weight deflectometer and seeing if it needs, determining the extent of the damage there, and seeing for that spot repair, how deep are we going? Are we going more than 2 inches? So life extensions are a cost-effective solution to extend the useful life of a structurally sound pavement and bring the surface back to good condition. We are lowering the network life cycle costs in order to maximize ADOT's limited pavement dollars. And this life extension project development process was recently approved by FHWA for Arizona just this past June of 2022. And with that, thank you for listening to this presentation. If you have any questions, I will try my best to answer, but this is Kevin Robertson's presentation. His contact information is there on the slide.
Tim Ernest, Oregon DOT. I was just kind of curious, and maybe you don't have that information, but for your FWD testing, what is the test spacing that you're using when you're trying to localize certain spot repairs for these life extension treatments?
The test space?
Mm-hmm. Like Oregon, our typical spacing, we're testing every 250 feet. That's just kind of our standard. I'm just wondering if...
Not familiar with that, I'm so sorry.
Nice presentation, Maria. So when you're doing the spot repairs, the 2-inch, and then you come and place the treatment, right? Do you allow for time for curing, or what's the time between the spot repair to applying the treatment?
Good question. I will have to ask Kevin that.
Okay.
Not sure. I'm so sorry.
No.
If you ask me anything related to data or databases or PMS, then...
First, just a comment on Tim's question about FWD test frequency. Nevada used 10 data points per mile on each direction, so total of 20 on back and forth. So each mile segment of center line, you get every 250 feet stagger measurement on FWD. So the second thing I'd like to ask, in your presentation, use Cape seal that you have a hot applied chip seal with terminal blend rubber binder. Do you know, is that still the practice recently with terminal blend binder for hot applied chip seal?
Possibly, it sounds familiar. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because we have been told it's not available anymore. That's why we haven't had any hot applied chip seal job in the last 3-4 years.
Kevin owes you big time, doesn't he?
Robert Young, New Mexico DOT. You were saying you do 2-inch mills unless the cracks are deeper. How do you, we have that same problem. How do you know if the cracks are deeper?
It's that FWD test. They do some analysis with that. They test those areas.
Gives you the structural data, but can you tell how deep the cracks go from that?
I don't know. They just, that's what they said. They just do that test, and
Okay.
there might be some correlation there, I would assume.
When you core, you can just core one crack at a time. And how do you know if it's just that crack that's deeper, or if there's other cracks that are deeper?
I don't think they do coring. That wasn't my understanding, because that is a cutoff point. If more like that kind of thing, they're just trying to assess if it meets those thresholds. So
I mean, I don't know what they do, but you know, when we go out and do that kind of thing, talking about top-down cracking, we look at multiple cores, and we see that on average they're about 2 inches deep. Usually it's pretty consistent unless you have some kind of a fault in the asphalt somewhere. So core the cracks. Core other places too, just to make sure, but core the cracks. Thank you, Maria.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.